Welcome to Got Malware, a practical guide on detecting, removing, and preventing malware on your home computer. Today we're going to be looking at a pretty typical Windows XP installation, and we believe it has some sort of virus or Trojan on it that we want to remove. Not only do we want to remove it, we also want to see if we can prevent it from happening again. To detect and remove any malware that we think is on the machine, we need to do three things. The first is to download a tool called ImageBurn, which lets us write ISO files to a CD. And then we need to download Kaspersky's Rescue Disk. And then the last thing is once we've downloaded Kaspersky's Rescue Disk, we need to burn that ISO file to a CD. So you'll also need a CD and a CD burner to write this file to. One quick tip before we get started. I would suggest downloading and burning these tools on a separate machine than the one you believe has a virus or Trojan on it, just because sometimes the virus or Trojan can interfere with you actually downloading and installing this software. So here's our Windows XP desktop. Now we're going to go to Start and Internet Explorer, and once Internet Explorer comes up, we're going to go to ninite.com. That's ninite.com. Ninite.com is a collection of useful and free software, one of which is ImageBurn. So we're going to put a checkbox next to ImageBurn and then scroll down a little bit further and hit Get Installer. Once we hit Get Installer, another page should come up and we'll select Download Installer. When we hit Download Installer, a dialog box will come up where we hit Run, and then we'll have to hit Run again. And momentarily a box will come up that will show us the progress of ninite.com downloading and installing ImageBurn. This has been sped up a little bit just for the sake of the presentation. It'll take a little bit longer for you doing it. Once we've downloaded and installed ImageBurn, we can close that out, and now we can open up google.com to go get the Kaspersky Rescue Disk. So we'll type in google.com. And once we get to that front page, we're going to do a search for Kaspersky Rescue Disk. The second option is download Kaspersky Rescue Disk 10. We're going to select that and then scroll down a little bit, and we're going to look for something called Kaspersky Rescue Disk 10. We're going to select that, and a dialog box will come up where we'll hit Save, and we're going to save it to our desktop for easy retrieval. It'll take it a little while to download. We've sped that up for the sake of this presentation. And then we can close Internet Explorer and you'll see it's on our desktop now. We can open up ImageBurn, and once ImageBurn comes up, we've got a blank CD in the CD tray. We're going to open up the file we just downloaded, which is on our desktop. We'll select that file and click Open, and then we're going to hit Burn, which is the icon there that we're clicking on with the CD. Once it's done burning, we can close out ImageBurn, and we have a working CD that has Kaspersky Rescue Disk on it. Now that we've successfully downloaded and burned our Kaspersky Rescue Disk to a CD, comes to the trickiest part of this whole demonstration, actually booting from the CD. If you're lucky, you can simply put the CD into the drive of the machine that you believe has malware on it and hit reboot, and it'll boot right into Kaspersky's Rescue Disk. If you're not so lucky, you're going to have to adjust something in what's known as the BIOS of your computer to tell your computer to actually boot from the CD, which is what we want. One quick tip before we get started booting from the Kaspersky Rescue Disk, and that is you should be doing this from a computer that's actually plugged into a wired internet connection, not a wireless connection. It may or may not work with a wireless connection, and the update times will be a little bit longer. So now we're going to reboot this machine. We've got the CD in the CD tray. Going to hit Restart and let it shut down. And it's going to come up to a screen, and normally this can come up very quickly for you on your machine, and it might actually come up and say something completely different than this. And that's one of the things that makes it tough. You might have to press something like F2, F12, F10, or even Escape like I do in this situation. So you'll notice on the bottom of the screen it says press escape for the boot menu. And the boot menu gives us the option to pick which drive we want to boot from. So once this starts back up, I'm going to hit escape, and you'll see it'll come up to an option that says which boot drive would you like. I'm going to select the CD-ROM drive, which is because we have our Kaspersky Rescue Disk in. And then momentarily you should see a green screen come up, which is good. We'll have to press any key. We're going to choose English and hit the number 1, and then we're going to boot from the graphics option. Now that we've selected all the options in Kaspersky, should take a second and go through and load the desktop for the rescue disk. It'll come up after a little while with a screen automatically. You shouldn't have to do anything. It'll do this all on its own. It'll tell us that we have our wired connection, which is good, and then it should pop up a screen to tell us that here's the drives it sees and here's what we're ready to do. So here's what it sees right now. You'll see on there the C drive kind of near the bottom, and we're going to choose to update our definitions, which is just going to have a long list of all the viruses that are out there and just get us the most recent one to make sure we have the best chance of catching anything malicious. So we're going to select update and then sit back and let it run. This will take a little while, and once it gets completed it'll refresh, and after refreshing we're going to go ahead and go back up and select that tab. We're going to select the C drives and then hit Start Object Scan. And depending on the size of your drive and its speed, this could take quite some time. I know on a 250 gig drive this can take hours upon hours. So I would say start this off and go get a cup of coffee and find something else to do. You'll see along the way it did find some malicious software, some malware. So we're going to select do this for all events and delete, and we're going to go through and you'll see that'll happen again, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing. And then you'll also see another couple pop-ups kind of giving you some information along the way. This is all obviously not good to have on your machine, but good that Kaspersky is finding it. And here's another warning, so we'll do the same thing and let it do its thing. Now that we've successfully scanned and fixed all the issues on this drive, we can go up and click on Report, and it'll show us all the viruses and Trojans that were found by Kaspersky during the scan. Now we're really finished with Kaspersky, and the next step is to remove the CD from your CD tray. And what I'm going to do after removing the CD is press and hold the power button for about 10 seconds and turn the machine completely off. Once I've turned it completely off, I can go ahead and turn it back on again, and it should go through into the boot to Windows just like normal. Now that we've removed the CD and rebooted, we should boot into Windows like normal. So far we've actually gone through and we've found the viruses and malware, we've removed them, and we're really on to the third part, which is preventing this from happening again. To prevent ourselves from getting infected with malware again in the future, we're going to do three things. We're going to remove any old software, we're going to install new software, and then we're going to change some user accounts on the desktop. The reason we're removing old software is that old software like Java and Adobe Reader and Adobe Flash are very common ways that malicious attackers are able to take over your machine. So we are going to update those, and then we're also going to show you how to keep them up to date so that in the future, if any security vulnerabilities come out with that software, it'll actually automatically fix that for you or prompt you to fix it. Now that we're here on our Windows desktop, we're going to go to Start and Control Panel and Add Remove Programs. And the first step is we're going to remove the old software. So the first piece of software we're going to remove is Adobe Flash. We're going to highlight it and hit Remove, and it'll come up with a box that we'll have to hit Uninstall in. We'll hit Uninstall, it'll remove itself, and then we'll hit Done. The next thing we'll remove is Adobe Reader. select remove and yes, and it will go through the process of pulling itself off your machine. In a minute, it's going to come up with a dialog box after it's completely removed itself and say, would you like to restart your computer now or later, yes or no? And we're going to go ahead and select no for now. And then the last thing we're going to take off is Java. I'm going to select Java and hit remove and yes, and let it pull itself off. And at this point, we have all the most commonly attacked software off of our system. So the next step is to update that software and get the correct software on there. So we're going to go to Start and Internet Explorer. And once it comes up, we're going to go back to the same website we went to earlier, ninite.com, ninite.com. And when it comes up, we're going to select a few more programs this time. Specifically, we're going to go down and select a new web browser, Chrome. I like Chrome because it's fairly secure and sandboxed, and it updates itself automatically, which is a great feature. We're also going to go and select Flash because a lot of websites depend on Flash. And we will not pick Java just because it's so commonly exploited and abused and very rarely needed. Another tool we're going to install is Foxit Reader. That's for reading PDF files, like it's similar to Adobe Reader. And then for antivirus, we'll select Microsoft Essentials. The last thing I like to select and put in there is TeamViewer, which is a great way to help somebody remotely so that you guys can share screens and help troubleshoot. I'm going to hit Get Installer. It'll come up to the page where I'll hit Download Installer, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Run. Then I hit Run one more time, and then we'll get the Ninite progress bar that comes up and tells us that it's going to download and install the software that we selected. After a while, depending on the type of software you've chosen, it'll get finished, and we'll go over and hit Close, and then we can go and close out Internet Explorer. We're going to open up our new browser, Google Chrome, which will look like this, and we're going to put one more tool on here in Google Chrome called AdBlock. AdBlock's a great feature that actually keeps advertisements from showing up, which are common ways that attackers can infect your system, is using a malicious ad. So we do a search for Chrome AdBlock. We go to that first option. It'll come up. You'll see here momentarily and show you that's AdBlock. And then here I'm going to have to slide over and see that it's Add to Chrome is the button. We select that. It'll ask us, are you sure you want to add it? Do you want to add or cancel? We'll hit add, and then momentarily it'll come up and tell us that it's successfully installed and give us some options to proceed. So we're going to go ahead, and when it comes up and hit that was easy, and then we're going to close out that tab, and then we'll close out Chrome. The last security software change we need to make is making sure our Windows firewall and security updates are getting applied. So we'll go to Start and Control Panel and Security Center. And once Security Center is up, you can see here that our firewall and automatic updates is actually turned off. So to turn on the firewall, we'll scroll down and select Windows Firewall, and we'll put that on and hit OK. And then to turn on automatic updates, we'll just click Turn on Automatic Updates. That'll keep our Windows software up to date, and our firewall protect us from attacks from the outside. Now that we've updated our software, the next step is to fix the permissions on our users. We're going to create a new user and change the rights for the user that we're running under right now. The point of this is that running as an administrator is kind of like walking around with a gun in your pocket with the safety off. It's liable to have bad things happen to it often. So we're going to create a new account. We're going to call it admin_user, and we're going to make that user an computer administrator, which means they can do anything they want to in the system. After we've created that account, we're going to go back to the account we're logged under, which is just called user, and instead of making him a computer administrator, we're going to make him a limited user. And that's important because if there's ever an attack on our machine, it'll be running as a user, which has less rights. We're going to go to Start and Restart, and we're going to let our machine shut down and then reboot. And this time, instead of just logging on automatically as the standard user, it's actually going to give us two options to log on. Our standard user, which has the name user, but also a second user, which has the name admin_user that we just created. And the point of that guy is with the second account, the admin_user, that's where we need to install software and do anything that requires administrative rights. We'll do all of our web surfing and everything else under the standard user. So under the admin user, we'll log in, we'll go to Start, Internet Explorer, and this time we're going to go to google.com and we're going to install one more piece of software. We're going to do a search for Secunia PSI, download, and when that comes up, we're going to take that second option, and it'll come up with an option to download Secunia, which is actually some software that helps you keep all your other software up to date. We're going to click here to download, and when it comes up, we'll go ahead and hit run and let it download, and then it's going to prompt us to run again, which we will do. And it'll pop up one more box. We'll hit next and agree or accept and hit next again. We'll take the defaults and hit next and hit install, and we'll let it install, and once it's finished we'll hit finish. It'll ask us, do we want to run it right now, which we'll hit yes to, and it'll go through. We'll accept what it tells us, and we'll scan the system. So again, the point of Secunia is that it actually looks at all the software you have on your system and tries to keep it up to date. So it'll tell us that we have these certain programs that are out of date, and if it can, Secunia will go ahead and update it automatically for you. If it can't, it will at least tell you where you can go to download the update. Now that we have Secunia looking at our system, we're going to go to Start and log off. And instead of logging in as the admin user, we'll log in as the normal user. And this is the user we'll do all our web browsing from. We can open up Google Chrome, and you can see what a normal page looks like. And we can make it and set it as our default browser, which means it'll just come up every time you try to open up a web page. It'll try to open that Chrome, which is a good thing. It's a secure browser. It's not perfect, but it is very strong, and again, it updates itself, which is a great feature. We can go ahead and close Chrome. The second piece of software I can pull up is Foxit Reader, which again is a PDF reader and is a substitute for Adobe Reader. It's not necessarily more secure because it's just that much better, but attackers don't attack it as much, so from that point of view it's a little better choice. The last piece of software we're going to look at that we install is Microsoft Security Essentials. Just free antivirus, and it does a great job. So we've removed our malware, we've prevented it from happening in the future. Now we're going to go to Start and shut down and let it turn off, and we are completely finished. That's all for Got Malware, a practical guide to detecting, removing, and preventing malware infections on your home computer. Hope you found this helpful and it's helped you out of the situation. Also, just keep in mind that no matter how good the defense is and how many tools we put on the system, there's no substitute for thinking about what you're clicking on. So click responsibly. Hope this has been helpful, and take care.